Now, may I request Sri Ajitabh Sharma, IAS Chairman and Managing Director, Jaipur City Transport Services Limited, to share his vision, and then we'll have two industry perspective as well for the inaugural session. A huge round of applause for him.
So, सबसे पहले माननीय मंत्री महोदय और डायस पर मौजूद अधिकारीगण और इंडस्ट्री रिप्रेजेंटेटिव्स एंड द ऑडियंस who is present here, the industry representatives and the representatives of office bearers of different IT industry and technology industry. First of all, I would like to thank APAC and UPDESCO for inviting me away from Jaipur and giving me this opportunity to express my views here. So first of all, I would like to congratulate the Chief Secretary who has just left. He gave such a vivid presentation and explanation of what all is happening in the state of Uttar Pradesh. So we had been hearing that in last period of 4 or 5 years, a lot of good things have happened and a lot of major policy decisions have been taken and how they are being implemented and the role the policy makers and particularly the bureaucracy is playing in the state, the mindset change which has occurred in the bureaucracy of the state and the political leadership which is taking ahead all these grand projects and schemes and policies. And as Chief Secretary very rightly mentioned that there is a set of more than 20 plus policies covering the entire domain of governance. So we hope that the manner in which these policies are being implemented, there would be good case studies and good experiences to learn for other states also. I am really delighted. So my purpose of coming here and I being invited here gets fulfilled after learning so much from what the Honorable Minister and the Chief Secretary spoke about. So I am not going to present like any major kind of case study or so whatever we have done, but taking a cue and taking a step ahead from what Chief Secretary spoke quite in detail about the IT intervention and use of technology and software and IT solutions in the government or the governance. So I just want to throw some ideas to this audience. It is basically for this audience and not more for the policymakers because policymakers already know what are the challenges which they face in their daily functioning while they frame the policies, why the policies do not get implemented. We come out with very huge and mega projects of worth of like 100 crores, 500 crores, sometimes 800 to 1,000 crore rupees. But they do not deliver the objectives for very objectives for which they were conceived and planned out. So as the title of this summit was Digital Empowerment, so I'll just end up by throwing broad ideas that where the IT industry should be looking for in future for IT enabling of the governance. So what is the scope and what is the problem which we sitting in the government as policy makers face while interacting with the IT industry? So there is a huge gap sometimes that what exactly we are wanting to do and what the IT vendor or the IT industry representative is understanding out of our demands and requirements and what finally happens. So I'll start with the basic premise that as of now, what we talk about like e-governance and IT interventions in governance is basically intervention in the government setup. It is more about e-government and less about e-governance because so this is the broad outline of my presentation, because CS sir also fortunately and coincidentally spoke a lot about the interventions with the state of Uttar Pradesh and Government of India, Ministry of Urban Affairs and Ministry of Jal Shakti is making in the area of water sector. So I will start by explaining in brief what actually we mean by governance. So we are able to differentiate what the role of the government is and what actually the governance is. And then in brief, I will, in few more slides, as and when they come, I'll discuss about what are the major areas where the IT interventions have taken place and what are the areas which we have missed out where there the future business is lying for the IT industry in the public space, in the policy making, in implementation, because huge money is going to flow in future in these particular sectors which are currently being totally missed out by most of the state governments and to some extent some of the ministries of government of India also. So to understand what actually governance is, and I have a passion for water sector. So I'm pursuing this sector continuously for last around 9 to 10 years and have worked for around 3 years in the irrigation water resources department also. So looking from the lens of water is the best way to define what governance is actually. So if we go through this definition, water, and I have highlighted few words in dark blue just to attract your attention. Water governance refers to the range of political, organizational, and administrative processes. So it is not only the government institutions or the government offices. It is not only like the executive engineer of the irrigation department or the AN or chief engineer of the public health drinking water department. It is something much more than that. Political, organizational, and administrative processes through which communities articulate. So there is a very big role of the community, of society, of people, of citizens in governance, which we forget at times. Their interest, their input is observed, is absorbed. Whatever their demand is, whatever their desire is, so that is absorbed by the system, that has to be absorbed by the government setup. Then decisions are made and implemented, and decision makers are held accountable. This is most important. So there has to be a way. If there is a good governance, then the people are heard to, they are listened to, their input is absorbed. Accordingly, the decisions are made by the government setup, and when they are implemented, if the outcome is not as what was desired, then the government officials or the political economy is being held accountable on the development and management of water resources and delivery of water services. So this is what governance is. So if we are talking about like empowerment of people, like digital empowerment. So what as of now currently we are doing is, we mostly end up in talking about digital empowerment of the government, not of the governance. So, and government is an entity. It is like collector, it is like subdivisional magistrate, or it is tehsildar, or it is the honorable minister, or it is the cabinet, or it is the principal secretary, or the additional chief secretary, or the officers of the line departments. That is the government. Government is an entity. But when you talk about governance, it is something much, much more. So as I, in the previous slide, explained about water governance, that is only in one area. So like health, education, water, agriculture, animal husbandry, PWD, PhD. In all sectors, the definition of governance is slightly different. So what we have to look at is, when we talk about IT enabling or IT enablement or IT interventions in governance, which part we are tackling? Which part we are tackling? That is the whole question. So currently, as of now, so coming back to this, so empowerment happens with good governance. So if we empower people, we'll be able to render or deliver good governance. And or it is the other way around too. Good governance leads to empowerment of people. So normally what happens is that we talk about big schemes and big guidelines and big policy frameworks. But ultimately, in past 70 years, we have seen government schemes failing, like poverty alleviation programs, like the rural household house building scheme, like Indira Awas Yojana, or currently the Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana in rural areas. So why these guidelines or schemes, we had to change them continuously? Because those policies failed. At the end of the day or down the road, they give us some kind of successful results. But maybe because the policy was not conceived in the right earnest, maybe the manner in which we devised those whole guidelines, they were not as per the actual socio-economic systems which prevail. So I'll give you a very small example how government and governance are different. Let us take a case of a police station which is a part of the government. एक थाना लेते हैं, एक थाना in some X state and another thana in some Y state, say roughly more than 1500 kilometers away. मैं स्टेट का नाम नहीं ले रहा हूँ, वो लेना उचित भी नहीं है. तो वही आईपीसी लागू होती है दोनों थानों में, वही सीआरपीसी के अंतर्गत तफ्तीश होती है, इन्वेस्टिगेशन होती है, वही जुडिशियल सिस्टम है, लाइक एसीजेएम, सीजेएम, देन डिस्ट्रिक्ट कोर्ट्स हैं, हाई कोर्ट्स हैं, वही कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन में सिमिलर प्रोविजंस हैं. क्रिमिनल जस्टिस सिस्टम वही है. वी हैव पब्लिक प्रोसिक्यूटर्स, वी हैव एडीपीज, द मैनर इन विच द फाइल्स आर बीइंग मूव्ड, everything is same. So the government is same for both those police stations. But we keep on hearing, एक थाने में तो कोई सुनवाई नहीं होती है, मुकदमे दर्ज नहीं होते हैं, है ना, तफ्तीश में उलटफेर हो जाता है, न्याय नहीं मिलता है. And there is that another police station which functions very well. Why so? गवर्नमेंट तो एक है, सरकार का सिस्टम जो संस्थागत ढांचा है वो एक है, बट जो डिलीवरी है इट इज नॉट सेम. It is because, so I am hitting this particular point only for the very basic reason that sometimes a scheme or policy of government of India would be very successful, say like in Andhra, and would not be so much successful, say for example in Haryana or Rajasthan, or other way around, another scheme would be very successful in Haryana or Rajasthan, and the same scheme would not be very successful in delivering the results and achieving the objectives in Andhra. Why so? Because governance is different. That is the whole point. And it was very well explained by Pedzovic, an economist in the year 1998, in his much celebrated paper, that the basic reason is that there is a set of informal systems. Like I gave you the example of a police station in one state which is not functioning well, despite being under the same law or under the same criminal justice system. So the reason is maybe like if it is a mining belt, so in that case what happens is that शायद mining mafia जो एक informal system है उसका ज़्यादा प्रभाव है. Maybe it is because of the caste politics. It is having a bigger role than the legal system which we have. So it was explained by Pezovic that it is the formal and informal systems, both, which determine how the governance would happen. So the governance would be different in Delhi, it would be different in Mumbai, it would be different in Lucknow, and it would be different in Jaipur, despite having the same government structure. So Pezovic explained like why, and sometimes we blame it to the culture only, that culture is different, but it is not so. Pezovic gives an example of like East and West Germany. Same culture before the fall of the Berlin Wall, same language, same people, same society. Despite that, West Germany grows at the rate of more than 3 or 4 times in terms of economy and living standards and individual per capita income as compared to Eastern Germany. So was it only the political ideology which was there? It was something more. It is because, and despite the fall of the Berlin Wall, though the wedge has reduced like anything, the gap has reduced in all these socio-economic development related parameters, but even then there is a gap. Because it has been identified that there are still a set of informal institutions which have some role to play in East Germany. So, my whole point is that these socio-economic systems are very complex. So, when we talk about like IT intervention or finding IT solution to citizen-related problems or the governance-related issues, so the solution will have to be unique to each situation and scenario and circumstances. We cannot have one size fit all kind of solution when we talk about governance. And considering this whole definition of government, how people are to be involved. So currently what is happening is, what we are doing, where the IT intervention is going in governance, it is mostly in government. So, lot of examples the Chief Secretary Sir gave. I think almost more than 75% of them were related to the first category. Our primary focus is on citizen services. because that is perhaps relatively easier even for the IT industry, even for the youth or the startups who are into IT domain and sector to find solutions where the government interacts with citizens only for the purpose of rendering of service. So like paying of electricity bills or scholarships or like applying for exams or booking a reservation in a bus or a train or flight reservation. So majority of the interventions are happening in that domain, which is a very small part of governance. That is what all I want to say. So we have provided round the clock 24/7 offices. It has reduced visit to the governments and it has reduced manual effort for us, for the employees in the government system. It has reduced time, physical record keeping has reduced. It has reduced government to citizen transaction costs. Now you can apply anywhere. You don't have to travel to the government offices. And monitoring and evaluation has improved. So this is the core area where currently the representatives who are sitting in the audience are focusing upon. It is an easy business. So when I sit in the department, I have worked in a number of departments having public dealing like energy, water, mining, revenue, industries. So mostly what happens is that when any IT vendor or industry representatives meets you, he comes with a solution. He says, sir, that we have got this solution. Do you have a problem which can be solved by this solution? So that is a problem. That is the barrier which we as policymakers find between us and the IT industry. So what we are not doing. So this is the point of governance. Like citizen interfacing functions like government to citizens, we have done reasonably well. But our internal functioning, that is very weak. So there are a lot of states. When I was revenue secretary in the government in Rajasthan, so I just tried to test the waters and tried to know that how many states in the country have gone for deemed land conversion. So I came across 3 or 4 states who had done good work by then, around 3-4 years ago, in deemed conversion, IT enabling of land conversion. But unfortunately, what I was wanting to know, the similar result as expected I received, the backend was not computerized in none of these states. I don't know about UP as of now, what has changed in last 3 years. But as a test case, so if an investor or an industrialist or maybe a farmer or a small investor applies to the government, to the revenue agencies for conversion of land, that file has to cross 18 hands, 1/8. So it has to pass through 18 desks. Even as of now, 2022, it has to pass through different set of peoples from Patwari, ILR, Tehsildar, SDO, collector, and sometime to the government. So it will take a lot of time. कभी मौका पर्चा बनेगा, comments होगा, rules का examination होगा, 18 times. So this is the back end. Our government systems are very weak in adopting IT solutions in our internal functioning. So interfacing the people, the citizens, we have done quite a good work. But lot needs to be done inside us. So you apply for land conversion change, okay, you'll be able to apply it within 2 minutes. Initially, it used to take, say, around 10 to 15 days or sometimes a month. But then after that, what happens? So it is the same time period. It will take around more than 2 months, 3 months, sometimes 5 months, in fact. And the applicant would have to rush to different offices, sometimes to Tehsil office, sometimes to subdivision office, or sometimes to even to the collectorate. So this is a point where we are very weak. And I invite the industry to find solutions how to go ahead for and assist the government and policy makers in doing the government process re-engineering, what you call BPR in the private sector, business process re-engineering. So unless I start thinking that how can I reduce those 18 set of people to maybe maximum 3 or 4 or 5, that is what my GPR is, government process re-engineering. So unless I do that, my whole purpose of IT enabling the government to citizen centric service gets defeated. Though I have reduced time maybe from like 100 days to 70 days or 60 days, but ultimately it has to be brought down to 5 days. So we have to start thinking about that. We should not be sitting complacent that, okay, we have IT enabled the interface with the citizen, because governance is something much more than that. Then interdepartmental engagement is entirely missing. So like I have worked in the irrigation department, revenue department, and mines department. I'll give you a very simple example. So when I was developing IT solution for the mining department, so like we were translating the lease area into latitude and longitude as per the satellite data. And before that, it was in distance and bearing pattern, what was started by the Britishers. So it was prevalent in mining department in Rajasthan for last more than 40, 45 years. So the latest technology is the total station technology. So because Rajasthan is a mining rich state and our major revenue comes from the mining activities. So there are a lot of disputes in like encroachments and lessees entering into the government land or forest land, and if there are adjoining leases, then there were issues of overlap of leases. So the solution which lied in IT was to translate all those lease areas into latitude and longitude coordinates, because that is never going to change, and that never sums up the error when you keep on counting or progressing further to trace the area. And in latitude and bearing, you will keep on adding the error. So by then, there was a scheme of Government of India of digitalization of revenue maps, which was being done by the revenue department. Then there is a kind of digitalization which was being done by the forest department too. So, but when I went to these department as director mines, and I have also worked as principal secretary mines, I worked in mines department for 5 years. So it was very difficult to obtain the data which they already had, the revenue department and forest department, the exercise which they had already done. They had invested crores of rupees in digitalization or IT enabling of their own departments. But as mining secretary or director mines, I was not able to engage in terms of creating IT network so that I don't have to reinvent wheel. And further, because whenever the disputes arise in future, so there is a kind of, say, just to make you understand or to explain you, there is a committee of forest guard and like patwari and mining foremen. So again, the disputes would keep on arising for times immemorial in future. So best way is to integrate. So interdepartmental engagement is entirely missing as of now in our governance setup. Now we are talking about what is happening inside us, what is happening within the government. It is entirely missing. And there are large number of areas. Water is another sector. Water sector, or as Secretary Water Resources, I had to deal with, you'll be surprised to know, 17 departments, 17 vibhag the. Agriculture, industries, mining, revenue, drinking water, health, and then watershed department, then to some extent even the education department. So these were the major departments, 17 departments. But each department is standing alone in a silo with their own IT solution. So that is that is not a good state of affairs, if not a very bad state of affairs. At least I can say very safely that it is not a good state of affairs. So we are very strongly missing an interdepartmental engagement as far as IT enabling or IT interventions or finding IT solutions is concerned. Then government process re-engineering, we are losing a big opportunity. When I was in industries department then, based on this Punjab model of one-stop shop, so we were planning to come out with the act, similar act, and we came out with it also. Then we created a kind of empowered committee and sent the apex level screening committee just to expedite the investment proposals. So what we were doing in that whole process, which fortunately and touchwood I could change because of my continuous pursuance, and after that I went to the IT department also as principal secretary IT. So what we were doing was that whatever procedures and rules were laid out to us in n number of circulars and orders and directions and guidelines, we were simply asking our vendor, the IT partner, to develop a IT platform for that. That is not at all a good idea. Once you have the opportunity that now you are IT enabling the in-house business processes of your department, then that is the biggest opportunity. We should start thinking of changing those whole processes. Like what I mentioned about the land conversion thing. So when we are creating a platform, digital platform for disposal of applications for land conversion, then it is a high time to withdraw all those old circulars or modify those circulars and do the whole process re-engineering. If we do that, it becomes very easy for the IT partner also to develop a framework, because these are the systems which were created way back like in 1950s or 60s. And now we want to fit them into the IT solution framework, then it becomes very difficult. So we are losing a big opportunity here. So what I personally try is that I am in whichever department, I always try to reprocess the whole thing. So we need to start thinking, इसको ऐसे क्यों कर रहे हो? Let us change this. 3 लोगों की क्यों रिपोर्ट चाहिए? एक ही की रिपोर्ट से काम चलेगा, है ना? ये चैनल ऑफ डिस्पोजल ये क्यों होना चाहिए? Why it should go up to the secretary? Let the HOD decide it. Like we delegated lot of powers when I was in the revenue department. We had delegated lot of powers of land conversion to the grassroots level, not even to the collector. It went up to down below to the subdivisional officer, to SDO. Similar was in the mines department. Like in minor minerals, we delegated many of things. So government process re-engineering is a big opportunity which we are losing. Another problem which you guys should ponder upon, the industry should ponder upon, is that the majority of the data which is available in the departments is not in machine readable format. So most of the data, either it is in PDF form or it is in text form, good for the purpose of providing information under the RTI Act. But when you want to, as the CS also mentioned, data is the gold. But that data has to be available in a utilizable form. So what we call it is a machine readable form. So if as Secretary Water Resources or Secretary Mines or Director Mines, I am wanting to use the data related to Forest Department, it should be available in such a format that I should be able to extract and pick up data and then utilize that data. I should be able to do the data mining. So we lack broad standards. I don't think other than Ministry of Power or to some extent Ministry of Water in certain areas has been able to do it successfully. Standardization of data collection and data validation, that has to be done. Otherwise, we'll fall far behind. We'll end up only in IT enabling the government to citizen interface. But our internal and in-house systems will not be able to improve. Scalability and interoperability, a major problem when we interact with the vendors. Like if I have used, say, 1 lakh smart meters in the power sector, I have worked as Principal Secretary Energy, I was Chairman Discoms. So there was a tender few years ago which was given for deploying 1 lakh smart meters. So that contract was over after 4-5 years. So when we went to the new vendor, we went for the open bid to discover the price. Then the vendor came and said, "Sir, ये तो पुराना system कैसे काम में आएगा? इनका तो protocol ही हमें नहीं समझ में आ रहा है. Data is not available." So that is a big nightmare for the government departments. So we have to see that. I'll finish in another 5-6 minutes. Shovik, 5-6 minutes more I'll take, then I'll finish. Yeah, you only 4-5 minutes. So then vendor lock-in, that was another issue. So there is much more we can do in IT enabling of the government, of the governance. More focus is on the government aspect. So I am skipping these few slides. So these are few points like what we are missing in the water governance, because as the sir was also mentioning, like data and information gap. The whole water cycle, there are n number of points where data is missing, we do not have. Cross-sectoral stakeholder data exchange is not available. Space and time scale, particularly when we talk about climate change, we know COP or the intergovernmental panel has given number of reports that what will happen in India or Indian subcontinent or South Asia. But when we drill it down, when I sitting in Rajasthan or like in Uttar Pradesh, we have to design a policy, adaptation policy, maybe for the agriculture sector or for the water sector. We don't have anything. So data or modeling results are not available at regional and local scale. We have to start thinking about that. Then risk analysis, which is needed much more than ever. That is not happening. So the industry needs to focus on that also. So I am skipping these few points. So, and last point, I'll come to this point E. So we are talking about digital empowerment, good governance, transitioning from e-government to e-governance. But if digital empowerment is not there, but fortunately, government of India is doing an excellent work in digital empowerment through Digital India. And as CS also mentioned about the n number of interventions which are taken in various departments. So we have to focus much more digital literacy. Otherwise, we'll end up in creating a huge divide. Only a particular set of people would be able to use these IT services, or the government officers and employees at the most. But governance at the end of the day is much beyond than government. We have to start thinking about enabling of the citizens, their role, their feelings, their feedback. Policies have to be designed, and then we have to be held accountable. So that is what I think e-governance is. Thank you for inviting me and giving me so much time. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Sri Ajitabh Sharma, IAS Chairman and Managing Director, Jaipur City Transport Services Limited. With his vast experience in the policy making, I follow him in LinkedIn. I can assure you can learn a lot of things, kind of transformation he has done in the water sector. And as you have said, that it's time that, okay, we are giving solutions to citizens for government service delivery. What about changing our own self? There is system within. And I think there also there's a huge scope for industry to collaborate, to change the mindset. Once we change the mindset, I think we can change many things. Thank you so much. A huge round of applause for him.